Welcome back, everyone. I'm Carrington-Russell, Australian award-winning author of kick-butt heroines and action-packed fantasy romance worlds. I have a very special guest for you today. We are talking books I absolutely devour and love. We are talking action-packed heroines with a-hole alphas, which I love in delicious fantasy worlds. We are talking to the USA Today best-selling author, Kel Carpenter. How are you today?
I'm doing pretty good. I'm glad to be here, honestly. It's nice to get a little bit out of my head every now and then and talk to another adult person.
You may regret saying that after this interview. Depends what way we go with it. No, I'm kidding. Well, tell me, because honestly, like when I was stalking you, I'll be honest, I was stalking you. And I've known about you for a while. I was actually recommended to interview you by one of your co-authors, Lucinda Dark, also known as Lucy Smoke, a year ago, ages ago. And she absolutely adores you. I adore you. And so I'm just so curious as to when writing started for you. What gave you the impulse to start writing your own book and publish it?
So I was probably 14. I was actually bullied a good bit in middle school and high school. Fun fact there. I was a massive nerd and I liked to read, and we didn't have tons of money growing up and I was bullied. So I kind of just clung to reading. And at a certain point when books weren't coming out fast enough, or it didn't seem like there was enough of them, since, indie publishing wasn't really a thing back then. So there was a lot more limited selection, basically what you saw on the shelves at Barnes and Noble. That's when I kind of was like, okay, I'm going to write my own book. So believe it or not, my first book that I published at 21, I actually wrote at 15.
I would believe that because that's a similar story to mine. That's really interesting. Wow. So how did you then go, obviously writing that at such a young age, not knowing anything that you're doing or how you're shaping it? I imagine it was a nice way for you to create a happy place for you, so to speak, especially when you have those angsty hormones and emotions happening, and as well as being bullied on top of that, it kind of gave you a special place to go to. So how did you go then, being an adult and deciding to publish it? Did you try to pitch traditionally at first, or?
So I tried at 16, and I actually had some agents that were interested in it, but I didn't inevitably end up getting any bites. And so I kind of shelved it for a few years. I finished high school. I started college. I was actually in chemistry. But I'd really been thinking about it for a while there, where I was like, I just want to see. I want to see if it, how it does, see if it's good enough, kind of like that idea, in your mind of like, it's good enough. That's a really vague concept, but most authors really know what I'm talking about there when I say that. And so I started researching, and I was like, okay, I need an editor. I need a cover. And at the time I didn't have vellum. It was still really brand new on the market. And so I was like, I need someone to format it. And so I ended up finding someone, and fortunately I was not one of the people that I think when you're a new author, it's really easy to get screwed over hiring people that you don't know what you're doing. You don't know if they're actually good at their job, or if they're even an editor or a cover artist for that matter. They could tell you they are, and they're literally just some random person that found something on the internet and like gives it to you. I got lucky. I will say that was not what happened to me. And I published my first book, and so I'm sitting there and I'm watching the sales, and I'm like, oh, this is good. I want to say I made like $50 my first month. Okay. Like not crazy numbers, but this was 2016. So it was a bit before, I want to say that was probably before the mad dash. I think of it with publishing. And so I was like, okay, I'll put a little bit of advertising money. Like I need to get people to see it, And so then the next month I made, a couple $100, I think. And then I was talking to some people that knew better, because I was getting involved in author groups, and I was told my cover wasn't quite up to par. It wasn't awful. Like I didn't make it myself, but, it wasn't up to par. And so I find a cover artist, because I start looking at other books that are indie authors that have beautiful covers. And there was one that really stood out to me. So I contact the artist and we hit it off, and she designs it. and I start making thousands of dollars a month on a single book as soon as I changed the cover art, which was really crazy. And so that kind of just kicked off my author career.
What book was that? What was the
Heir
name?
of Shadows.
Heir of Shadow. That's amazing. And I imagine it would have been very sort of full circle for you, especially going from that teenage dream, thinking, I want to be an author, I'm going to be a successful J.K. Rowling, and then realizing as you go through a couple of years, thinking, oh, I haven't been picked up, or this hasn't worked out for me, having that initial doubt, I imagine, and I'm only reflecting here, so tell me if I'm wrong, but, you know, having that, maybe it's not good enough, you know, maybe I'm not actually cut out for this, but then still building the courage to then hit publish, having no idea what you're doing at the time, and then for it within a couple of months to be so rewarding and have a clear path for you, that's amazing. And I guess you've probably never looked back since. You kind of probably knew then this is what you're doing.
Yeah, I will say that I never looked back. My one thing with that though, I was still in college, so I did finish my degree. I won't lie, I didn't want to. After about a year into writing, I was doing quite well. You know, I got another couple of books out and things were really taking off. But I only had a year left to graduate. So I was like, okay, I just need to buckle down and do it as much as it kills me. You know, and so I did. But for that first year, I was also waiting tables at the time, you know, doing pizza stuff well into like, I was serving pizzas and running cashiers and whatnot. And I continued with that for a while because it's kind of like this thing in the back of your head of like, you don't want to give up stability, not knowing for sure. And so, you know, I spent a while, because in the beginning, I actually would end up using pretty much everything I made that month to pay for advertising for the next month to keep it going. And so I wasn't pulling money out of like what I needed to live. I was only using what I made from writing, you know, and then eventually we completely surpassed that to where I was able to then take it in as income.
I find it interesting that you were doing your last year and studying and you were working and you were still, probably without realizing at the time, you were doing one of the more practical, smarter things for your business by whatever you're earning, throwing it back in and snowballing it, because I think a lot of people really do risk their financial stability and whatever they're doing full time and they throw it all into it. And it can really make life unbalanced, I want to say. So I think it was very clever what you did. I love all of your covers, the end, full stop, and we will talk about that later, which is interesting when you're saying too that as soon as you changed that cover, you had such an immediate response. One of the ones that I love is Fortune Favors. Is it Fortune Favors the Cruel? Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm like, hold up, is Favors of Fortune Cross? Yeah, Fortune Favors the Cruel. I love those covers. They are stunning. And I remember seeing them everywhere when they came out, like absolutely everywhere. So I was wondering if you could tell us a little bit about the Dark Magi series for those who haven't read it and what gave you the inspiration for it?
So the Dark Magi series actually was, I had a dream. And I had this dream, which isn't quite the series, but it's what started it, that was about a very dark couple where it started with this girl that was being mentored into kind of going into the darkness of her powers and whatnot. That it was empowering through it. And so I was really intrigued by this because you don't often find books that have anti-heroes that are women. It's really common to see it with men. You know, everyone loves a bad boy and this and that, but it's really uncommon. And honestly, there's a double standard that women aren't allowed to be unlikable or to embrace that. And so that was kind of what set it out. I had this dream, and then I like really just kind of got attached to the idea of writing a heroine like that, but that she's okay with herself in the darkness and that they really just get each other. The saying that I use a lot is, you know, like attracts to like. And that's, I mean, that's really what it comes down to. So I love the Dark Magi series. It was kind of cathartic in some ways, getting to write something like that, because so often I feel like, and I think many authors do, you kind of have to give a little bit with your characters for the sake of what your readers want.
Yeah.
And I very much did not do that at all in Dark Magi.
I really want to talk about anti-heroes actually, because I love anti-heroes. I love writing them. I love reading them. And I think, dare I say, they are a much more complex, I want to say, because they're so unlikable, but yet you have to write them to a degree where readers still want more of them. So what advice would you offer writers who are wanting to go down that darker path, or, you know, darker fantasy, or even the anti-hero? What kind of writing tips do you have trying to characterize somebody who's unlikable but still likable?
I would say that the biggest thing, which is true across the board, but you know, I don't think that it's always what you see, is that you need to think about characters full spectrum. They're not two-dimensional. You know, if you're going to write someone and you want it to be remotely believable, everyone has good and bad. Even your heroes at the end of the day have bad traits, just like your villains have good traits. And so that was kind of when I was writing Quinn, finding her line of, she was okay with torture and she was okay with killing, but she wasn't okay with slavery, you know, or, you know, if someone deserved it, even if it was a minor offense in her eyes, that was one thing, but she didn't torture or hurt kids. And so it's kind of like you find whatever that line is for your character, you know, and oftentimes for heroes, that line is, you know, we never do this or that, which honestly, I don't really write any kind of heroine that's not. I always write somewhere in the gray at the end of the day. I have a really difficult time with heroines that are like, no, we can't kill them, even though they're trying to kill everyone, because I don't understand that concept. And so I'd say if you're wanting to write an anti-hero, you really need to think about the reasons why they are the way they are. And then build from it. You know, what are their good characteristics? What are their bad ones? Why do they have those characteristics? And go from there. I think that's the biggest downfall that people have, is they get the idea of an anti-hero and they say, I want to write someone like this. And then doing it two-dimensionally, you do end up making someone that tends to be unlikable to the point that it's like, you're not rooting for them, even if they're not the worst person ever. Like Umbridge in Harry Potter. Who would you rather punch in the face, Voldemort or Umbridge? The vast majority of people are going to tell you Umbridge, even though she wasn't trying to kill a bunch of people. And that's kind of at the end of the day. How far are you overshooting? Are you turning into an Umbridge?
I love this like example. it's so global.
It's a very clear-cut one that the vast majority of people understand instantly, because you think about it and you're like, wow, if I had to pick someone to kill, I would have picked Umbridge. Even though she is the better of the two, technically.
So what does your writing process look like then? Because I know it's changed a little bit for you now. You have a baby. We got a 3-month-old now. So obviously a lot of your writing time and schedule would have changed. So how are you finding adapting to that?
Well, the biggest thing for me is I write every day of the week, 7 days a week, every single day. I don't take off any days. But I only write for a couple hours a day. So 1 to 3 hours a day usually. In doing that, it takes less pressure off of me to get bigger word counts when I'm writing, you know, because if you do it every day, even if you only get 500, 1,000, whatever, it's still something. It also keeps what I'm writing more fresh, so that, you know, I'm not taking big breaks. I don't jump projects. That's a really big one for me. I can't write multiple things at the same time. I've tried. It has not gone well. You know, I can do it for a week or so sometimes if it's very early on in one of the projects, but not for any length of time. And I need to write in the morning usually. That's the other thing. So when my husband's home, he tends to watch the baby for a couple hours in the morning so I can get my work in. And then all of my admin stuff I kind of do on my phone, or, you know, when we're hanging out with baby and this and that, and I can like throw up some abs or whatnot, because those you can do with one hand. And you can do that with like Frere Jacques playing in the background, you know, with a barking dog or whatever that they use for these kids' toys. And it's not quite as distracting. Mind you, I'm learning to write with it playing in the background too because of that, but that one's still a work in progress. But yeah, I mean, my schedule is very much built on routine. I am not the most sporadic writer. I stick to things because when I make deadlines, like I hardcore stick to them. And I think that's also part of it being a business. If you look at it as like your sole source of income, and it's like, it has to happen. Like, even if I have a baby, even if, you know, life happens, the words also have to happen at the end of the day, because that's what it takes to live.
Well, are you a plotter or a pantser?
I would say I'm a pantser, but I have a little bit of plotter. So when I start a book, typically, if it's not high fantasy, so high fantasy is a little bit different, but if it's not high fantasy, I start with an idea and a little bit about the character, mostly their driving motivation. And then I start writing page one, and I'm learning about them as I write.
Yeah.
And then I kind of hit a point where I start to know what I want. And usually after the first book, you know, I'll have like scenes that I see and things that I want to happen or what I'm working towards. And so I may know 4 or 5 really important things about the following book. And so when I sit down to write for those ones, I'll write, you know, I'll have those in mind as I'm going through and writing. And usually by the last book, I have a decent list of things I want to happen. So it ends up, I'm not plotting, but it's like I have a checklist where I'm like, I need to hit all of these things. And so when I finish a chapter, I look at my checklist and I'm like, what makes sense to do next? Where do I go next? Which is the case of this last book that I'm finishing up this week. So that's been fun. High fantasy is different though, because you actually have to have a better grasp of the world to start. You can't just dive into it willy-nilly, not knowing anything about this world you're creating. So having a good concept of that, and then where your characters fit into it, that's kind of needed before starting with high fantasy, usually, at least for me.
There's so much development that has to happen in high fantasy as well. It's not just the characters, it's the world as well, which I guess brings me to one of my favorite questions to ask, because, you know, you're either going to love it or you hate it, but what is your favorite book that you've written and why? Or even your favorite character out of all the books that you've written, why them?
That's a hard one.
I know. That's why I love
it. But I truly have a favorite. Part of it is that my favorite changes. Part of it is how easy a character is to write. Some characters are actually quite difficult. The main character of my first series, Selena, she's near and dear to me, but she was very difficult to write. And finishing her story was difficult. You know, the character I'm writing now, Piper, in my Demons in New Chicago series, she is a lot of qualities and things that I was working through the pandemic. And so she can be difficult at times, but she also has a lot of me written into her. Quinn, I really enjoyed writing. I don't know if she's my favorite per se, but I enjoyed writing her. She's probably one of the easiest to write, actually, for me. And a lot of that has to do with how unapologetic she is.
Yeah.
That's not something that happens often, to have a character that's not afraid of things and that's unapologetic about what they do in life. And so that in itself is really, really enjoyable. But usually the one that's my favorite is the one that I want to write that's next, but I don't get to write yet because of the current project I'm working on. And that's almost always the case, where it's like, I want to write blah, blah, blah. They're going to be my favorite. And then when I'm writing blah, 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 I'm like, oh, they suck. Why can't I be writing so-and-so?
I think every author can relate to that, though. It's like waiting for the next part. I just have to get through this book so I can write this book.
And then once you're writing that, your book is like, man, you suck. You were not nearly as cool as I thought you would be. You do not play nice. You do not follow the assignment. Like, who is this other person that just showed up in this book? What are you doing right now? Why is there a Kager? Like, what?
Speaking of like cool people and cool characters, I actually want to talk about co-writing because it's a very interesting marriage to step into. And you do a lot with Aurelia Jane, and then you've done some with Lucinda Dark as well. And so I was wondering how it was for you at the first time writing with somebody else, and what tips you have for those who might be wanting to do something similar.
So co-writing, I'm happy you use the word marriage because that's really accurate. I'm going to start with that it's different with every person. You're never going to get the same result twice. Even if you've got your process, it doesn't matter who you're working with. You will never be able to have the same exact thing twice. So it's just, you're taking two different personalities and you're finding a middle ground, and that's always going to look different. For people wanting to co-write, I would say that you should know the person for a good while before you do. People look at it and they're like, it's so fun, you get to write with your friend or someone that you aspire to or something like that. Or they look at it with the business mind and they're like, oh, well, you can write faster, you can get more books out. One of you, it might be great at plotting and the other one's better at getting words out, or, however it works. But at the end of the day, when those books are published, you are tied to that person monetarily for the rest of your life, or the rest of the life of the series. So think about if your series does really well, if something happens between you and your co-author, what does that look like? A marriage. That's what it looks like. It looks like divorce.
Yeah.
So
it's true.
And so I don't want to scare people, but I also think that people should know going into it, know who you're writing with, first of all. And then second of all, have a contract beforehand. Talk about those uncomfortable things that you don't want to bring up, because you don't want to be talking about them when it's too late and they've already happened. Yeah. Figuring out all of those nitty-gritty details, talk to other authors that have co-authored to make sure that you're covering every, basis that you should. Those are all really important things that I think a lot of people don't do and essentially jump into it. But when you do find a good co-author, that meshes well with your style, that works with you on a business level and on a personal level, it's amazing. Like, it's a great thing when you find that. Yeah. But, it's like marriage. You can't just marry some person off the street because you like them. Yeah. And they seem nice in your conversation or something like that. So I would definitely say with co-authoring, the biggest thing is not jumping into bed before you get to know someone. Yeah. But then once you do, making sure that you've hammered out all of the details and whatnot, because really it protects you both and it makes you both, realize whether or not a co-authorship is actually a good fit for you. Because if you run into something on the contract where you guys cannot agree, what is that going to look like in a book? Yeah. Aurelia and I, we had a very large disagreement on the end of the second book of A Demon's Guide to the Afterlife. Literally the last line, it was a single sentence. The last line we had a massive disagreement over that lasted for like 2 weeks. I'm not going to say who thought what or whatnot, but Aurelia and I have been friends for 4 or 5 years now. She was at my wedding. I've watched her kids. We are very close. We've worked together in a professional capacity for a long time as well. And we found a solution that worked for us both. We listened to the issues. We talked about, what does the market want and need versus like, what does Kel's crazy idea mean? Because it's quite often that I have an idea and I'm like, this is sick. And then she's like, which is good. It is good to have a voice of reason. if we didn't have all that, what does that look like for people? Because there's a lot of people that disagreement happens, and we didn't agree for like 2 weeks. So like, this wasn't like, oh yeah, totally. Like, we went back and forth a little bit, figuring out, our stuff there. But I think that's really what it comes down to with co-writing. So much like anything else where I'm like, I don't want to scare you, but I like to look at things with a really realistic approach, because this is a business and it is my full-time job, and it is ultimately what supports my family. And so it's not something that I can let emotion drive. And I think that is very easy for authors, because so many of us are emotion driven. That's kind of how we write these books. You feel so much that you just got to get it down on paper.
And I think they're great tips too, because the reality is, as you said, as exciting as it is to jump into and go on this new adventure and co-write, there are a lot of things to consider when you're delving into it, because you are attached to them for the lifespan of that book. And especially when it comes to money as well, like it's not just writing a book together, there's money after that involved too. So I think it's a very good tip about organizing a contract between the two, even if you are best of friends, to just have that down. And I've had other co-authors say before that having that contract will save your friendship, because it is a business, and then trying to separate it. So I think that's fantastic advice. Speaking of fantastic advice, then let's talk about covers, because your covers, the best.
I love covers. My favorite topic, honestly.
Yes, I'm so excited then, because your covers are stunning. So first of all, I want to know who is your cover artist, but second, how do you know what you want? Because all of your covers are so on point. So what advice do you have for other writers to do the same?
So I've worked with a number of cover artists. We'll start there. And similar to co-authoring, every artist and client work differently. When finding an artist, you need to find someone that meshes well with you, because there's lots of different ways. Some authors really want to basically have what they want, and they're like, I want this, and I want this element here and this element there. And there are designers that are great at that. That is not me, though. I go into it and I say, I have this book, this genre, this thing about the characters. If I want a person on the cover, this is kind of what they look like. And I give them the vibes I'm going for, and I show them other covers I like. In the case of things like my Dark Magi covers that I now have symbol covers for, it's like I literally went through when I was thinking about the book, and I thought of symbols and things that related to the different books. And so I made a list of symbols, and I said, I only want a symbol cover. Here's some symbols. Pick what you want that you think will look good on a cover. And, so in some ways, I've been told that I'm one of the easier clients, because I really let artists do their thing, but I also am really picky about who I hire.
Yeah.
It's the flip side of it. I look at an artist's portfolio. I look at how many wow covers an artist has, and I talk to people that have worked with them about the process. I created a Facebook group called the Cover Designer Review Group. It is not the most popular among designers. I know this, but it's actually really helpful, because it's helped me find people that I never probably would have worked with before or even known about. When you have people that are like, yes, this person is great to work with, they're good at this, this, and this, this is kind of what they like to do. Awesome. Or they say, this designer really wants to know exactly what you want, and you should have this kind of concept. And it's like, that tells me they're not the right one for me. And it probably wouldn't be a good fit for them either on their end. Because, you don't want a client that's like, hey, I just kind of want something that fits this. And they're like, okay, but what about like the background or the elements? They're like, what do you want? It's like, I don't know. I'm not the designer. I don't know. So yeah, my covers right now, Triff, I think it's Triff Cover Designs. They did the object covers for Dark Magi. I love working with Triff. I have like 2 other series in the works with him right now. I say him, it's twins, but I never know which one I'm actually working with or talking to. So I always refer to them as one, but they're lovely to work with. They actually knocked my Dark Magi covers out first time on 4 of the 5, like no changes at all. So I enjoy working with them quite a lot. Clarissa has done half of my catalog at this point. She's done the Queen of the Dam covers and A Demon's Guide to the Afterlife and Daisley Academy. So she's done a good bit of my stuff. And she's also lovely to work with. She's great at branding, coming up with unique ideas, which is something that can be a little bit tricky because nothing's ever truly unique anymore. But you still need to find a way to stand out while falling within genre guidelines. And then Jay at Covers by Juan has done my Magic Wars universe stuff. So those are the top 3 that I've worked with most recently.
Yeah. And they're all fantastic. Like, I know all of them. Well, I don't know them personally, but I know of them because they have such a good reputation as well. And it's interesting that you have that Facebook group, which I think is brilliant, because a lot of us often do need those recommendations before, again, stepping into another marriage, like hearing about how their process is and knowing whether it's going to work for you or not. Because many of us have gone into a business proposal many a times and realized halfway through this isn't working. This we have to step away from it, which can be unfortunate, but sometimes you have to bite the bullet as well. I want to know about when you found out you were a USA Today best-selling author, because that is a phenomenal feat. So congratulations. And yeah, when was the moment you found out, and how did you celebrate?
Honestly, I found out on Facebook. I don't even think I found out by looking at the list. And it was kind of surreal. So for me, titles and things like that, it's back and forth. I have kind of mixed thoughts on it. So the first one I'll start with is the way that I earn them, I don't think affected me as much as if I had been able to by myself or with a co-author. Because I did it with a box set, I don't think that I feel it the same. Like I do think that affected it for me. And I want to go back and do it, on my own or with Aurelia. I would really love to be able to do that, or to hit Wall Street Journal or something like that. The second thought of that, when you hit something, the bar raises, at least for me. So it's like I hit it, and then you think you're going to have this feeling of elation, and it probably lasts for about 10 seconds, and then it's what's next. I'm always someone that's looking at what's next. I have a very difficult time staying in the exact moment with things. And so it's like, you finish a book, what's next? You finish a series, what's next? You hit a bar, what's next? And so that's exactly what it was for me, is, okay, what is next for me? And that can be a bit bittersweet almost in a way. And it's a little bit tricky to deal with. But it's the side that I don't think people talk about often, that I know also happens. So
100%. I can relate to all of that. So 100%. And I think too, this is part of the reason why we're very bad for this. I'm going to say as a generalization as authors, is that we always say, you need to celebrate this. You need to celebrate your accomplishments. Yet when it comes to ourselves, we're already on to the next project. And we do try and make a big deal for each other, because we are focusing, what's the next book, what's the next series, what's the next marketing plan. And I feel like sometimes it is nice to sit back and smell the roses, which we rarely do. So I 100% understand what you're saying there. What would you then say has been your biggest, for you personally, your biggest accomplishment and your biggest challenge in your writing career so far?
That's hard, because for me, accomplishment, it's so broad. It's vague. And at the end of the day, being able to be full-time is probably just the biggest accomplishment, because even though each series, some do better than others and this and that, at the end of the day, being able to do this full-time on my terms and be able to work from home and the job security that it provides, that's where it's at the end of the day. That is the dream. While we all talk about, things that we want and this and that, at the end of the day, that is the dream. That's the thing that people are like, wow, you actually get to do that. And I do. The greatest challenge, your work never stops. Yeah. You're home. You don't go to a 9-to-5 job. when you go to a 9-to-5 job, you get all your work done at your job and you go home and you can relax and do whatever. I get readers that ping me on Facebook, and I have stuff that I'm dealing with authors at 10 o'clock at night. And I have ads that Facebook has decided to randomly shut off that I now have to contact them and be like, what is wrong with you? Your bot did something wrong, turn them back on. Or, Amazon gets pissy about, a typo in a book that's probably not even a typo. And then they're sending you, nasty grams telling you to fix it. It's a never ending job.
Yeah.
People think of it as you write the book and you're done, but when you're an indie author, you're never done.
Yeah.
You're also the publisher, and you hire the editor, the cover artist, all that, and that's honestly the easy part. Yeah. It's after the book is out, you need it to continue to make money. And so running ads all of the time and figuring out new promotions and new ways to reach readers. And once you figure them out, odds are half the indie world also has. And so now it's, how do you find something new? Something innovative that hasn't been done yet. I like make faces and whatnot, but that's really, that's kind of, everyone is searching for what's that thing. Like TikTok became that thing, and now there's tons of people on TikTok, so it's not quite that thing anymore unless you happen to already get lucky with it. Yeah. And so it's like there will be another thing eventually, and when that happens, those people that were hot on it, they're gonna benefit, and then all the late to the apple, or I don't know, the early worm gets the bird. Yeah. The worm. The people that slept in, they're not going to get the worm.
Oh, what the worm?
Yeah, the early worm gets the bird. I don't think that's how that thing goes. But yeah, I think that you're always going to have things that you're going to have to do. I've been on date nights with my husband and had something crop up that I'm like, I need to deal with this. And he gets so annoyed. He's so supportive of my career, but he gets so annoyed when he's like, really, right now? And I'm like, yes, I'm sorry. I am very sorry. But right now. And that just sucks. That part is not so fun.
Yeah, because it is the juggling act, and a lot of people don't see this unless you are fellow writers and authors. You don't see the behind scenes, the constant work. It's not just product is done. As soon as you put that product out, there are many strings attached to that, whether it's readers or, as you said, dealing with Amazon and dealing with Facebook, and it never stops. And so at times it can even be very overwhelming because we are human. We do want to stop. We do want to have time for our families and for, our social things. And we're just struggling to make that time. And often we're compensating our health, our sleep. So there is a lot of pressure when you look at this as a full-time career as well. So I 100%, I hear you. I hear you 100%, because yeah, it's a struggle. But it is very rewarding on the flip side as well. And one thing that I love as well is you are so interactive when it comes to one of our biggest rewards, which is readers, and having that connection and communication, and knowing that we created something and somehow connected with somebody on the other side of the world. It's just mind-blowing every time. So you actually have a very supportive Facebook group. You have over 3,000 members and readers in there. So why was it so important for you to be on social media? Because I know you're on Instagram and TikTok and things like that, but what was your biggest, push to be so interactive when sometimes it can take a little bit more time to be on there?
I would say the biggest thing with social media is that when I started out, I was broke. I was doing pizzas, and I was going to college, and I was, paving my way. To publish my first book, I saved up tips. That was how I managed to do it, is I saved up tips for like 6 or 7 months. And those tips went towards paying for the editor and the cover art and all of that. So social media was like, okay, this is free. Let's find a way to make it work. Let's find a way to find people. There's lots of people on here. You just got to find them. And so that's really kind of what got me on that. Continuing with it, it's honestly, it's just become habit.
Yeah.
I do enjoy interacting with readers some, and it does ultimately benefit me as the author as well, because then they talk about my book and they tell other people about my book, and I get readers that discover it all the time through Facebook or Instagram or whatever. But it's just become part of it for me. I mean, that's just kind of my day to day now. I check in with my Facebook group. I try to remember to post on Instagram, although I've been a lot more infrequent of late. I actually really enjoy my TikTok videos. For me, that one is less like I'm not waiting to go viral and more I find myself funny and enjoy it.
It's validating.
So it's like other people may not, but I find myself hilarious.
I find them funny. When I was stalking, so I've seen a couple of TikToks. I find you funny.
So it's just kind of like, it's just something that I enjoy. You'll probably notice I'm like walking around and probably half of them, that's because I do them while I'm walking with like my son strapped to my chest, and I have a dog yanking on my arm, so I'm trying to walk really slow with the dog and hope that like geese don't walk by us, because otherwise my phone's just gonna go.
I mean, it could be funny on TikTok though.
It might, yeah, it might.
Because one thing I love on your Instagram is your graphics. Your graphics for your books are stunning. And so I was kind of curious, do you, a lot of those reader-based created, or do you design those, or do you get them when you create your book covers? How do a lot of them come about?
So the flat lays that you see with like the pretty books and the stuff around it, some of those are me and some of those are my readers. I actually got really into them just because I like doing them. I like things that are aesthetically pleasing. And so I just thought that they were kind of fun setting them up. Nowadays, I don't really do them as much because they're also work. Setting something up and then moving it around and then tweaking it just right for this, one picture out of 50 pictures. It's a little time consuming. So I leave those to readers most of the time now, and I try to share them because I appreciate it when people do those with my books. With the prettier like graphics that kind of look similar to my book covers but have teasers and whatnot, those I talk to the designer and I ask for blank graphics so that my PA can then put the teasers on the graphics so that they're really branded to my books and they look specific. I was doing blank white ones before because I thought they looked aesthetically pleasing, which I still do. But then I really thought about it, and from a marketing perspective, branding things is better. So I did that.
What would you say then your most memorable reader interaction moment has been?
The first thing that comes to mind is one of my readers likes to call herself my number one stalker. She's not a real stalker. She's not. But she is a big fan. And she came to PennCon because I was at PennCon one year. And I just remember the look on her face when she met me. And I was just like, I'm actually way better in video than I am in person. Because in person, I start to get like awkward and I'm just like, But yeah, so I want to say, like, honestly, the most memorable one that came to mind first was just when I was meeting her and she was like, hi, and she was so excited. And I was just like, And she even said afterwards, like, she was on Facebook and she's like, you're so awkward. I'm like, I know. I mean, I own it. Like, I know I am. Books are great because you can edit them and you can make, things not awkward. I like writing characters that are awkward though, or like Quinn that just don't give a shit, because I relate to that well. And I find that more relatable than characters that know the right thing to say. Now, Aurelia is great at writing characters that know what to say, but that's also because she's the person in the friendship that tends to do that. Whereas I'm over here like,
Hi guys, I'm just happy to be here.
Yeah.
So one thing that's interesting is that you have actually gone into audiobooks and German translations as well, which are huge steps. How did you find the process of both of them? And would you say for you personally, one was more beneficial than the other?
Okay, so translations or audio. So translations, I'm still new to the game. That's something that I've been working on for the last 6 or 7 months. And I've now got ones in German, French, and my Hungarian publisher stuff comes out this month as well. So doing them yourself, I would say, is a bit more work than doing audio yourself, because I also don't voice my audio at all. I hunt down narrators I like, and then I reach out to them individually. And my current two that I work with pretty much exclusively at this point, they're amazing and they work great together. They've got such, a lovely relationship going where they just mesh really well. I don't think they even worked together before they did my stuff, but I individually like them so much. And I was like, can you guys both do the thing and make it happen? And they were just great at that. And that's Savannah Gilmore and Adam Gold. And I should tell everyone they're horrible because I don't want other people to hire them.
What is this the title? They are terrible.
Yeah, it's like they're terrible, but no, they're super lovely. And I love working with them, but no one hire them.
Gone.
Booked out for like a year. Like I have to book stuff with him like a year in advance now. It's crazy. Like he's super, super in demand. But yeah. So, with audio, it's actually really simple. You just send them the manuscript, they finish the files. If you go through ACX, they even upload it. So it's just like so simple. And then you just pay and bam, it's done. Translations are definitely a bit more work because you also have to redo your file. You have to redo all of your Amazon stuff in the other language, or other platforms too, if you're wide with your translations. And then I also run ads in German and French. And so it's like you have to get those sections. Now, I've gotten pretty good at actually being able to pick out where the teaser that I do in English is in the other language. So I pull it straight from my book versus having the translator retranslate it usually. But these are all things that like you have to think about and do, and they're not exactly as painless as audio.
Yeah.
That said, I do think translations also make a bit more at the end of the day. It's a whole new product and audiences that are very hungry. Audio is so much more common than books being translated into German or French. And part of that's the expense. It is a lot more expensive for translations than it is for audio. But I find that those audiences are very loyal, especially if you finish your series, because they're a bit distrustful if you don't. Naturally, lots of authors will do a book or two, and then if it doesn't sell, they drop it, which is business-minded. I get that. But if you had stuck it through, chances are they probably would have sold fairly well. So yeah, it's kind of a give and a take for what you're prioritizing. I've sold translations and I've sold audio, and I make far less on things that I sell, but I also don't have to do any work with it. I don't have to shell out any money. I don't have to go find people, but I make a lot more doing it myself. So I wouldn't do that anymore. So yeah.
This is my favorite question to ask. What is the big dream? What is the goal that you're chasing for your writing career?
TV show.
TV show, yes. What series will it be?
The longest time. I want a TV show. Like a film obviously would be cool too, but honestly, I want a Netflix TV show. That is what I want at the end of the day. Like, I would even do any of my series at this point, although some of them I think are more better suited to it than others. Yeah. I love TV shows. I think they're better than movies usually because they can do much more with the books and what you put into them. They're not quite as condensed. I love the format. I'm big on TV shows. I'm not as big on movies in general. And who doesn't want to see their stuff on screen with like Henry Cavill or Jason Momoa? I'm just saying, like, realistically, like, I want to see Henry Cavill playing my hero and just be like, yes, I have made it. That is what I want. I
do have a segment. It's called Speed Dating with an Author. You and I are going to go on a very romantic date, a little candle, a creative ambience. But basically what it is 5 rapid questions. Are you ready?
Mm-hmm.
Is that wine, coffee, or water? Water. Okay, cool. I was like, wow, you took a big gulp there. Is that just straight vodka or?
No, it's water.
What is the clumsiest moment you've ever had?
It's hard to pick one, but literally like a week ago, I fell walking on flat ground and twisted my ankle, and I've got like a giant baseball looking bruise on my leg. Flat ground. It was perfectly even, and I fell. So when people talk about like books and like they're like, oh my God, people are never that clumsy. Yes, I am. I am that person that falls on flat ground fairly regularly. You know, them little curbs like that you park your car on, trip over that right away, just like bam, that's me. So
That's
yeah,
so
I would just
funny.
say that's just kind of my regular day-to-day existence is clumsy, embarrassing accidents.
Well, then, what are the three best words that would describe you? I'm guessing clumsy might be one.
I mean, if we're using like physical things, probably. If I was gonna say the three best things to describe me, I'm very driven. I think that's probably number one. I'm very awkward. That's likely number two. um, and I'm very loyal. I would say that's probably number three. I'm kind of like ride or die with my people, which gets me into trouble sometimes because I really like there's times, you know, when you have friends and you're like they get in a fight with someone, not a real fight, like a verbal, and then you're like, man, they suck, like that other person, but you don't even know the full story. You know, I should not do that. And I've learned my lesson, but man, sometimes it's hard because they'll be talking and they'll be like, man, they suck. And like you really just you get going, and I'm like the hype man there with that, and it's bad. I shouldn't do that. So but I'm very loyal to my friends.
Loyal.
It's like, we'll focus on the positive here. Loyalty.
Loyal or instigator? No, I'm kidding.
You know, honestly, they're two sides of the same coin. So.
What is your life motto?
Ignore the haters and be a hustler.
I love that. That's a good one.
I actually have that written on several of my social media.
Really? Oh, I love that though. It's so good.
My Facebook bio is just ignore the haters and be a hustler. But yeah, that's really, you know, there's going to be a lot of people that are going to say a lot of things. You're going to stick your foot in your mouth in public. I probably have in this video at least 10 times. You know, and people will take things the wrong way, or you'll say something honestly that is shitty. At the end of the day, we're all human, and we do say things. And people aren't going to like it, and they're going to be very vocal about it because that's what people do. Own up to it and move on. You know, if you did something wrong, if you didn't, ignore it. There's no point in like letting these things drag you down, because there's only so much time, you know, and you want to spend it writing books or, you know, trying to get a TV show with Henry Cavill, or, you know, spending time with your family, or I don't know, going on vacations to Fiji. Like you got a number of options here, but you don't want to spend it, you know, being dragged down by things that other people say about you and whatnot. And really, if you're going to get anywhere in life, at the end of the day, it all has to do with being a hustler. You if you put in the work, you'll get somewhere. It doesn't necessarily mean you'll get where you want to go, but you won't be stuck where you are.
Yeah.
And so that's why that's like a really big one to me, because you don't have to be the most brilliant person in the room to be a successful author. You know, you don't need to be a rocket scientist, although some amazing authors are. You know, like you can be this weirdo with like, you know, that's like great at encyclopedia facts and things, and you know that no one knows, and it's not like applicable knowledge in the real world, but that's okay. You can use it in a book.
Yeah.
You can find like these random things, and that's great. So yeah, I would say that's kind of my motto, and it spans across everything, which is why it's my motto.
What is the song that best describes you?
The song that best describes me.
All I can think of now is Every Day I'm Hustling. Oh no, it's Shuffling. But I was thinking Hustling.
No, I love that. That's great. We're gonna go with that one then. I'm like, oh my God, I don't know.
Every Day I'm Shuffling, but Hustling.
And Taylor Swift's No Body, No Crime comes to mind. I'm like, that is not my song, but I need to.
I mean, it could be a song.
Right? I'm like, that's not the song. What's another song? Come up with a song, Kel.
I get this Diva from Beyonce, so I'm like, I don't know. I'm getting some weird ones coming through. Yeah, Beyonce's Na 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 Diva is a female version of a hustler. What about that one?
Yeah, I can work with that. That'd be a good one.
We got a couple options. We can play with that. Yeah. What is a unique talent or skill set that you have that not a lot of people know about?
You know, I had a really cool answer, but baby brain is a thing. So I did play violin for 7 years. So I have that under my belt. And I'm great at roller skating. At least I was before I had a baby. Now, odds are now I'd probably bust my butt, which I did before anyways. I'm super clumsy, so I bust my butt. But I was actually pretty good at roller skating, you know, except for the falling part. So
it's all part of it. It's all part of the fun. I have had so much fun though. So where do we find you? What is coming out? What do we need to know?
So my next book is the last series in my Demons of New Chicago series. That's Forged by Fury, the one that I'm writing and hating at the moment. They are not my favorite characters right now. And if people want to find me, I would say Facebook is great if you actually want to talk. If you just want to look at pretty pictures, Instagram. And if you just want to see how funny I am, TikTok is it. That is where you find me.
What's the name of your Facebook reader group? And is it just Kel Carpenter on your Instagram and TikTok?
So my Facebook reader group is The Crow's Nest. And then my Instagram and TikTok, Instagram is author Kel Carpenter, and then TikTok is Kel Carpenter author, because I couldn't be consistent, clearly. Couldn't make it easy on people.
It's still not the same.
Kel Carpenter, I'll probably come up. You'll see a weird chick. I probably had green hair at the time, or purple or something. Super red, like that's me.
Well, I follow you on all of those anyway, but everyone else should check it out, and definitely check out the TikTok videos as well. I love them. I have had so much fun today. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you for inviting me. This has been great.
Yeah, absolutely. And who knows, maybe watch your space. Next year we'll get you on and hear about how Henry Cavill's about to feature in your new TV series.
God, that'd be wonderful. That would be so good. You know, the thing I probably look forward to most with that, though, would be a selfie with him, because let's be real, I'm going to ask for it. I am totally a shameless hussy, and I would ask for it.
I would like nothing less. He's a not to objectify anyone, but he's a very beautiful man, and he's a good actor. So
he's great at what he does. So like, you know, in his role as the witch, I know everyone likes to talk about like bathtub, but like he's great at what he does, and he brings a lot to the roles that he plays, not just the Witcher, you know, but that's like the most iconic one at the moment. So
watch his space. Well, I am gonna love you and leave you, and have a good day.
You too. Have a good one.
Will do. Bye.